Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One PodVader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to the Thursday Night Football Preview edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. I am PodVader, but you are not here for me. Oh no, you are here for the SuperFans to break it all down, and for once, we actually have two SuperFans to break down their sides of this equation. We have Dr. Jones, he is our Cardinals superfan, and Justin, a former Thursday regular who represents the Seattle Seahawks. We will get to them in just a moment. You'll get to me at the very end because, frankly, I'm just here for the totally useless stats. We can keep my kids in the back room. They don't need to come out and yell, "Pod's totally useless stats." We'll get to that in just a moment. That is the warning that says I've already spent too long introducing the Superfan battle. They were not able to record together, so they recorded separately. And as we shall do, we'll start with the visiting team. Here is Dr. Jones.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jones here coming to you with a quick preview of my Arizona Cardinals heading to Seattle to play the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. I think this is going to be a great game between two teams really fighting it out in the NFC West for supremacy. In the end, though, I do think the Seattle Seahawks are probably going to be the more desperate team coming home after the loss to the Rams last weekend. I think we're really going to see them pull out all stops to win this game. Chris Carson might be back in this game too, which should really help their rushing attack. Meanwhile, the Cardinals lost Corey Peters for the season to a torn patellar tendon. Plus, coming off such a great win at home, I think there might be a letdown from the Cardinals as we go from Arizona, where we've been playing for the last month, to going on the road up to Seattle, where it looks like temperatures are going to be in the mid-40s with a slight chance of precipitation. So wet football, I really don't think that favors the Cardinals' passing attack. Although when we do go to Seattle, we are running the ball very well on them. Last year, Kenyon Drake had, I think, somewhere close to 150 yards rushing. Obviously, the read option with Kyler Murray is super dangerous, and I think that could be something that helps us. But honestly, losing Corey Peters, I think, is going to be just a really tough blow for the defensive line, who's already lost Zach Allen to IR, Lecky Fotu, a rookie, to IR. Our defensive line is really light right now. Angelo Blackson, Josh Morrow, who we just brought in 2 weeks ago, these are going to be the starters on the defensive interior for the Cardinals. And with Chris Carson coming back, I think that might just be too much for us to handle. And if you remember from 3 weeks ago when the Cardinals and Seahawks played the game of the week on Sunday Night Football, you'll remember Tyler Lockett just absolutely destroyed this team. Not much has changed from that game. From a defensive standpoint, I think Tyler Lockett's going to really explode. Patrick Peterson does have the ability to shut DK Metcalf down, as you saw from that game as well. I think DK does a little bit better this time, but in the end, I think it's going to be Tyler Lockett, Russell Wilson, and maybe a returning Chris Carson to make the difference. If not Chris Carson, I think they're going to have enough running to make this game a little bit hard for the Cardinals to come back from. We've been chasing wins these last 3 weeks. Some we've won, some we've lost. But in the end, the Cardinals just aren't putting together 100% perfect performances, and that's what we need to win in the NFC West. I still think our chances of being the odds-on winner in the NFC West are low. I really look at the Rams as the class of the division right now. But you never know what's going to happen in the last 7 weeks. We're all going to have to keep our heads up and keep looking forward. But if there's one thing we all can look forward to, it's the beautiful black jerseys of Color Rush that are going to be on the Cardinals. All black with red lettering. Kyler Murray's going to look like a superstar. That's it from Dr. Jones. Have a great day.
Russell Wilson and the Seahawks will be hosting the Arizona Cardinals for their second division game this year on Thursday Night Football. Their previous game was an overtime thriller and a game that a lot of people, I think, look to as an early game of the year contender. Honestly, the Seahawks, having started 5-0 and now losing 3 of their last 4 are in absolute disarray. Russell Wilson began the season as by far the MVP frontrunner, and things have turned. Truthfully, everything has turned since the end of that game against Arizona. Russell Wilson took some big hits near the end of that before they went into overtime, and he was clearly a very changed player. He had 2 possessions in overtime to try and win the game, a situation that he revels and is highly successful in, and could not move the ball, and could not get rid of the ball, and could barely get the team set properly. Since that time, he has had the worst turnover stretch of his career. He's either fumbled or thrown an interception 10 times since Week 7. That is by far the most of any 4-game stretch since he has joined the NFL. The rest of the team is doing no better. The defense continues to be on a historically bad pace, to be one of the worst defenses of all time from a yard standpoint. In addition, the coaching seems to be regressing. The team has moved away from its early down play calling, which involved a lot more passing than typical, and reverted back to a lot of runs, especially on very disadvantageous situations like 2nd and long. Cap that off with the fact that Pete Carroll's early 4th down aggression that we saw in the first 5 weeks has disappeared, culminating in a baffling decision this past week to punt the ball on 4th and inches. Again, when you have a historically bad defense, and the team seems to have regressed at all levels. At this time, I don't see the Seahawks as being a serious contender to win games against good teams, and the Arizona Cardinals are a good team. This team, which for me as a Seahawks superfan was a dream through 5 weeks, and I thought easily deserved one of the top spots in the power rankings, to me is now a bottom third of the league team at best. Until I see otherwise, I have zero expectation that this team is going to win. Something that should be a great situation, Thursday night, primetime, big game against a division rival. Until I see something out of Russell Wilson that shows me that he is fixed, I'm going to assume that his play is still broken. His decision-making continues to be bad. His throws continue to be bad. His accuracy is off, and he can't protect the football. I expect that to continue this week. The Arizona Cardinals are an ascending team. The young quarterback is off and on, but when he's on, he is very on. And they have some outstanding playmakers. This is a team that is on the cusp of being one of the better teams in the NFL. That means that against a hapless team in absolute regression mode, they should have no problem handling business against the Seattle Seahawks. The only hope I have is that whatever funk the Seahawks are in at all levels, somehow on this short week, they manage to kick it, and Russell Wilson returns to the form that we're so accustomed to. The defense starts playing better with all the pieces that they've acquired, and the coaching gets back to what made them so successful through the first 5 weeks. Once I have seen that, I will start calling for the Seahawks to win games. Until that time, I think this game is Arizona's to lose, and I think they're going to win it by a score somewhere along the lines of 27-12.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Thank you, Justin. You don't need me to break down these matchups. You just heard the two of them. Surprisingly, they both took their team to win. Frankly, it should be a very good matchup on this Thursday night and could be the determining factor in who ultimately wins the MVP at the end of the year. Because as we all know, Russell Wilson has never received a first place vote for the MVP. Of course, you can also say that Kyler Murray has also never received a first place vote for MVP. But I do think that we're looking at the two top contenders for the award at the end of the season. This game could be the determining factor, as it will be the determining factor in who is going to win the all-time series, because currently it is 21-21-1. In Week 7, Arizona overcame a 13-point deficit and beat Seattle in overtime 37-34. It was a big game for Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray, as you know, has been having big games all year long. Also, DeAndre Hopkins, he's hot off of the Hail Murray from last week against the Buffalo Bills. He is looking for his third game in a row with 100 receiving yards and a touchdown against the Seattle Seahawks. Back to Kyler Murray, by the way, he is the first quarterback in the Super Bowl era and fourth quarterback in NFL history to rush for a touchdown in 5 consecutive games. He joins Johnny Lujak, who had 6 consecutive games in 1950, Tobin Rote in 1956, Pro Football Hall of Famer Dutch Clark in 1936. Basically, what we're saying is Kyler Murray's a throwback. I don't know about that. But all of the Cardinals do really well against the Seahawks. Kenyon Drake rushed for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns in his last meeting at Seattle, which was Week 16 of last season. And since joining Arizona in Week 9 of the 2019 season, he is 3rd in the NFL in rushing yards and tied for 5th in rushing touchdowns with 12. So Kenyon Drake likes playing Seattle. Russell Wilson, on the other hand, cannot do what he did in the last game, which is 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Got to cut out the mistakes because his defense is not good enough to keep their team in the lead. Tyler Lockett had his career high game in their last meeting with 15 catches and 200 receiving yards. Also had 3 touchdown receptions in that game. We'll see if it'll be the Tyler Lockett game or the DK Metcalf game. I mean, I forget where they are because they usually alternate. But if you're going to base that, then this should be a DK Metcalf game, not a Tyler Lockett game. Or maybe it'll be a both of them game. Jamal Adams, who has 5.5 sacks this season and 6.5 sacks in 2019, is the second defensive back since 1982 with at least 5 sacks in consecutive seasons. And that joins Adrian Wilson, I believe a Cardinal. So, that is a long way of me saying that Las Vegas likes one of these two teams, and the team that they like the most is Seattle by 3 points. It's a tough spread. Frankly, Seattle was, at least last week was coming into the game as the number 1 offense in the NFL. I don't believe they still hold that title anymore, but what they do hold is a very strong offense and a very weak defense. Cardinals defense has been a little bit underrated. I suppose we could say that. But what I'm most concerned about with this game isn't even necessarily anything that these two teams can control. No. What I'm most concerned about is the weather, because Thursday we're looking at 49 degrees, 44 is the low, and showers in Seattle with an 11 mile per hour wind. Now, when you start getting to the 10 mile per hour, it will affect the ball a little bit, and there's only a 50% chance of showers, but it's not something that you necessarily want to deal with. I don't know what the weather will necessarily be like Thursday night. It may or may not be a factor, but it is still something to consider. And Dr. Jones brought it up. The Cardinals have been playing in Arizona for the last month. Now they're going to be outside on the road. Everything says take the Seattle Seahawks. Except since I'm leaning towards the Seattle Seahawks, and I've gotten every game wrong on Thursday night so far, I'm taking the Arizona Cardinals. It makes absolutely no sense. Everything tells me to take the Seahawks, but since everything has told me to take every other team this year on Thursday night, I have to go the opposite way because I've not gotten a Thursday night game. There's one Thursday night game that I've gotten right so far, and that was the Green Bay Packers. That's it. So I'm going with the Cardinals, making absolutely no sense because I think the Seahawks can ultimately win this game, but my official pick is the Arizona Cardinals. And there you go. That will put Russell Wilson behind the 8 ball in the MVP race. It'll put the Cardinals as the lone first place team in the NFC West until the Rams get their chance to tie it up this weekend. And there you go. So we'll have a full Week 11 preview for you coming tomorrow. Here on your favorite podcast, that being Next Fan Up. You can find us wherever great podcasts are heard. If you're not currently listening to one of those wonderful apps like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, well, go check those out. You can subscribe or follow. That way, when the show goes live, it will automatically be downloaded to your listening device. And then you don't have to wait for us or wait for my social media or however you found our podcast. Thanks for finding it. Thanks for listening. Please tell a friend, rate and review us on any of those apps. That will only help our show. It's the best way to help our show, quite honestly, since we don't have any advertisers for you to go buy their products this year. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, here's Kofi Annan. There you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together, and through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.